What is up, everyone? Welcome into another edition of our NBA DFS DraftKings Picks videos. This time for Wednesday, December 1st. Almost said November 31st. That's not a date, and we literally just went over that 2 seconds ago. I am your host, Justin Bales, joined by Spike for, I believe, your second podcast, correct?
Yep, second one.
We're glad to have you on. We started using a new platform to record our podcast, so we will have more multi-person podcasts as we're just capable of doing that at the current time. So you will be seeing Spike more often. We have another analyst named Max that will be joining us as well, along with Sriracha continuing to do his thing. But before we get started, Spike, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Trying these late games just started for the night before, and can't wait to see how that goes. But more than that, I'm just looking at this 9-game slate, and there's a whole lot to go over, and I'm excited to get into it.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty crazy, honestly. There is a ton of injury news. For anyone that doesn't know, Spike has been absolutely dominant in recent days of basketball. He also provides normal cores as well as our late night cores. That is with our core plays package, which perfect segue to dfskarma.com is where you can find all of our free content. We also have a chat room, chatdfs.com. These links can also be found in the description below. And we do obviously sell our core plays package, which gets you several staff's core plays along with our projections portal. Sam does great with ownership and all that kind of stuff, along with some premium content like final thoughts. And then you do get into our premium Discord channel as well. Once again, there are free channels in our Discord that you can get into, which we also do talk quite a bit throughout the day in all of those. But premium is where like all of the final decisions and everything are made. So that all comes with our core plays package. Go ahead to the site, pick one of those up if you would like. If you enjoy our content, please go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, or I guess if you enjoy this video, not necessarily the content. If you enjoy this video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. You can leave any comments that you have below. Go ahead and let us know how we did, whether you liked it. Any players that you have any questions on. There's 9 games, a lot of players. I don't think that Spike and myself can really discuss every single player that we like. So drop any names that you have below. We'll try to answer it throughout the day. Obviously, the earlier in the day, the more likely we are to answer, because around an hour before lock, stuff starts getting crazy in Discord. We get more news and everything. But I believe it's time to maneuver into the 9-game slate for Wednesday. Bear with us. I need to go through all of this injury news. I will try to make it quick. I will try to avoid anyone that doesn't really affect the slate too much. I'll try to keep it to the bigger names. But JaMychal Green, questionable for Denver. On the other side, Cole Anthony and Franz Wagner have already been taken off of the injury report. Etuan Moore will be out once again. Cam Reddish is questionable for Atlanta. Miles Turner, questionable for Indiana. Minnesota, you have Patrick Beverley obviously continuing to miss time. On the other end, Rui Hachimura will miss at least this game, I believe a couple more. And then back to Minnesota for the questionable players. It's Jaden McDaniels, Anthony Edwards, and Jared Vanderbilt. So a lot going on there. Cedi Osman and Dean Wade both out for the Cleveland Cavaliers. On the other side, Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler are questionable. Markieff Morris has already been ruled out. And it looks like Dwayne Dedmon is also questionable for that. Jaylen Brown is really the only injury news in the Philly-Boston game. He is obviously questionable. Dennis Schroeder and Robert Williams both taken off of the injury report. Mason Plumlee will be out once again. Cody Martin questionable. On the other side, Brooke Lopez will continue to miss time. DJ Augustine and Jalen Green both out for Houston. Derek Favors and Kyner Williams both out for Oklahoma City, with Mike Muscala questionable. Willie Cauley-Stein, Frank Ntilikina, not the Quinta, both out for Dallas. Kristaps Porzingis questionable with an ankle sprain. On the other side, you have Zion Williamson still missing time for New Orleans, which isn't shocking. And then the Sacramento news is kind of where it gets a little weird. Marvin Bagley, Mo Harkless, Harrison Barnes all ruled out last night, which is tonight when we're recording this, but last night they have already been ruled out. None of them have necessarily been ruled out for tonight, though, so I'm assuming all 3 of them will enter the day questionable, and then we'll kind of see what happens from there. On the other side, Nicholas Batum out once again, Marcus Morris off of the injury report. That is everything. That is quite a bit. Not necessarily some massive names. We do have a bit of, like the Jimmy Butlers, that stuff like that. If you're going to miss time, that's obviously going to change the slate, but not really as many massive names as you would anticipate. I think it's time we can get into position by position. You all are probably sick of listening to me talk, so I will let Spike outline a few of his favorite options at point guard here.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no, I mean, you got to do a lot of talking there. I'm glad to take it off you for a minute or two. I'm not going to try to persuade anyone off the top of like Luca or LaMelo. I personally, I'm looking at Bradley Beal up here. He gets a pretty good matchup against the Timberwolves, and they play at a pretty fast pace. He's obviously the main scorer for that team, and I expect this game to be somewhat high scoring. Both teams can really shoot the ball well, and the ball's just going to get put in his hands a lot. If you move down a little bit, I don't see any problem with going back to the well with Kevin Porter Jr. It's another matchup against the Thunder again, like we just saw, I believe, yesterday, and he just absolutely smashed. I think he had a triple-double, and I don't see why that's not going to happen again. They don't have many answers for him. Going to try to keep this pool small here. You go on down the list of pricing here. Another one that sticks out to me is Eric Bledsoe. It's a matchup against the Kings. Kings just don't really have that good of a defense, and they play pretty fast paced. And at 4,900, he doesn't really need a lot to hit that value or go over that value. Those are some of the main guys I'm looking at right there.
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything that I would go against in that. I think that they're all fine. The big one for me is there are probably other options that I prefer versus Bradley Beal if I go up to the top. I know that Beal is quite a bit off of the top, like LaMelo or Luca. I actually really like Doncic. I like LaMelo a lot in that matchup. It's just that Milwaukee is I guess, seen as a relatively good defense, and they're really bad against point guards. I guess it just depends on whether you anticipate that they treat LaMelo like the shooting guard and Rosie or more like the point guard. I would assume that they're going to treat Ball as the point guard. That's kind of how he's been essentially throughout the entire season. I don't know. He does have quite a bit of scoring potential, but De'Aaron Fox is another option that I like. The big problem for me is that you get no discount. Obviously, I do like the matchup. Clippers have struggled against point guards throughout the season. I just don't necessarily know at this point if I want to pay $8,800 for a guy that's really been struggling quite a bit throughout the year. I think that Kevin Porter Jr. is more or less one of the more obvious options. I think you absolutely nailed that. He did have his first career triple-double. A lot of people are really mad at the way that it happened because they tapped the ball back and told him to go get it for his 10th rebound. It is what it is. You're not going to get triple doubles that often. So I have no issues whatsoever with him grabbing it that way, especially since his teammates are the ones that did it. It's not like he forced them to. He didn't even realize it. And then they kind of told him, go get that rebound before it gets out of bounds. He did and got the triple double. I would say I really like Eric Bledsoe. I also really like Reggie Jackson. As you talked about, the Kings have no defense. They are quite literally the worst defense in the NBA. And I mean by a wide margin against guards as a duo. So I actually think that you can kind of pair Reggie Jackson with Eric Bledsoe together if you want to, just because Bledsoe is so cheap. But I do think that is a really, really good pairing that you can use. And then if you're talking about just cheap guys, Devonta Graham is 4,600. Gets a matchup against Dallas. I'm not overly concerned with that type of matchup. And 4,600 for a guy that played, I believe, 29 or 30 minutes in his last game. I feel like his price tag dipped a little bit because he was kind of playing the limited minutes in kind of that like weird situation that the Pelicans were in for a little bit of time. But I do think that he's a really good option. We can move to shooting guard. I'll let you start off here again. Who are you looking at for shooting guard?
So I'll stick with that Hornets Bucks game. I actually really like that game. I love the ball call. I don't think he's too expensive there. Ken Middleton was only 7,400. He's getting back from the injury or sickness, whatever he came back from. It's been a couple games now, so he's back to his full minutes. And again, it's just going to be fast paced. I think they're going to be more prioritizing Giannis over their other guys. So Middleton's a really nice option that sticks out in that middle tier. Lou Dort, someone else you go right down that list. He burned me the other day, but I'm willing to go back to that well. It's the same matchup again. I think if he stay out of foul trouble a little more and just get a little more involved, if his three is falling, the upside is there, and his defense is second to none. So I just really like that play as well. I believe Justin Holiday was ruled out for the Pacers as well, which makes Chris Duarte an interesting option at 4,000, I believe. He could even enter the starting lineup. We'll see. If he is, I definitely want to have shares with that. But even if he's not, doesn't take much to break that price tag. If a shot is falling, it should be relatively easy. Someone else right in that low price range too is Garrison Matthews. I don't think his shot was falling too well yesterday, but or the 2 days before. But if his shot is falling too, he's strictly for points. But if it's falling, you definitely want to have him on your team.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. If you guys were wondering why Spike was slightly confused by saying yesterday and then 2 days ago, it's because we were recording this at 10:30 at night. And so technically it was yesterday, but when you guys are seeing it, it's going to be 2 days. It takes some time to get used to that. The one thing I will say here is that we are completely on the same page. You essentially outlined the guys that I was going to outline here. So whatever you just said, completely agree with it. There's only, I believe, one guy that I really want to add. I guess I'll add two just for the viewers. One is Karis Levert, 5,400. He is coming off 34 minutes in his last game. Obviously, he burned a ton of people. He was high owned. He scored 19 fantasy points against Minnesota. Just a great matchup. Kind of everything perfect for him. And 19 fantasy points is what came out of it. He's 5,400. We all kind of know what Karis Levert is capable of doing. He hasn't been doing that, but it doesn't really matter that much to me. In that game, he shot 3 of 14. He's a much better scorer than a guy that's going to score 9 points. Prior to that, he scored 28 and 30. The minutes are there. As long as the minutes are there, I'm cool taking my shot on Karis Levert. And, if I go down with him, I'm completely fine with that. Outside of that, and it's not someone I necessarily love playing, and it's kind of because he's pretty reliant on scoring. But Eric Gordon with Jalen Green out, he should be locked into relatively large minutes. We kind of saw a little bit of a blowout against Oklahoma City in his last game, and he only played 29 minutes. That's still a decent chunk, but he should get back to like the mid-30s tonight. And if his shot's falling, he's one of the better scorers. Plus, we know that Oklahoma City doesn't really have a defense that you're going to be overly scared of. The big guy that I kind of was going to say that Spike already talked about was Lou Dort. So I just want to really hammer down how much I like Lou Dort tonight. I think that is a really, really good call. And then if you want to take some odd shots with a guy like Kevin Huerter, no problem. Pat Connaughton's actually been playing very well, but his price tag's at 5K. So a few guys that you can definitely use. And then obviously shooting guard is kind of a big position for this whole Jimmy Butler news because Max Struss I guess he didn't really burn people in his last game. Not that many people actually played him, which was kind of weird. But Max Struss obviously will be a top option if there's kind of injury news in that. But moving to small forward, go ahead and get us started here.
So for me personally, this is either going to be a spend up or spend down position tonight. You just said it. If Jimmy Butler plays, I think this is a really good matchup for him. Cleveland's not really that good at guarding the small forward shooting guard position. And that offense runs through him. There's a couple more questionable tags. I think Bam is questionable too. So, I mean, if he sits, I mean, all the usage just goes through him. Only 9,300. I don't think that's I think that's almost right on. Maybe a little cheap for him. But I really like that play. Also up there is Paul George at 10,200, I think.
Yep.
Against Sacramento, who really just can't guard anyone, and most of that offense is going to run through him. So if that game turns out to be a blowout, it's going to be because of him. So even if he didn't play the fourth, he's still going to get his points there. But the upside there is just really massive as well. And if I'm not using those guys, I think Jayshawn Tate at 5,400 is good. Going right back to that game, I really like that game as well. I don't know off the top of my head how he did that last game, but I know he at least hit value there, and as long as he stays out of foul trouble, should be able to do that again. Like we said, Oklahoma City doesn't really have that great of a defense. I don't think Lou Dort's going to be on him, so he should be pretty safe there. And then I believe Terrence Davis started tonight, and with all the injuries there, I think he'll probably get the start. I'm sorry, he started last night, and he'll get the start tonight. And at that price, at 3,700, he really doesn't need too much to hit value there, and probably go above value there. And even if it gets into that kind of a blowout game, I still think he gets run.
Yeah, that's a really good call. There are a few guys. I actually like the mid-tier here a little bit more than you, but at the same time, I think that you nailed everyone that you said. I have no issues with literally any one of those players. They're all very good. At the top, if Bam Adebayo is out, I feel like you kind of have to go Jimmy Butler, assuming he's in. But I do really like Paul George as well. Those are kind of my 1 and 2 at this position. I do think that you can go back to someone like Josh Giddey. He's 6,600, which is kind of up there, and he's more or less struggled a little bit. But he did score 24 fantasy points in only 25 minutes and shot 1 of 9 from the field. I don't expect him to do that again. I feel like he probably plays 30 plus minutes, and he does come with kind of triple-double upside. I know that he flashed more or less, he has flashed in each of the 3 categories. He hasn't really put them all together. I think one night his closest was like 6 points along with 9 rebounds and 9 assists. But he does have the triple-double upside there. So at 6,600, I'm more or less fine with him. I also think that if Miami is dealing with all the injuries again, Lauri Markkanen is interesting because obviously their defense is going to take a massive hit. Then you have other guys that just come with plenty of upside. Someone like Franz Wagner. Kind of crazy that I played him in back-to-back nights. It was both games against the Bucks where he scored 6.5 and 6. And then since then, he's just been consistently going off. And I think I've only used him like 1 time. But I do think that he's a really good option. And then if you keep dropping down, I agree with Davis. I do think that we're just essentially waiting on injury news because I believe Harrison Barnes is expected to return. And if that's the case, Davis obviously loses quite a bit of value. Also at the same spot, though, I believe the exact same price tag is Caleb Martin. If Miami is without multiple players, once again, it's just kind of injury news waiting at this point. But Caleb Martin started their last game. He played 33 minutes and scored 25.5 fantasy points. He doesn't truly have like the absurd 40 plus fantasy point ceiling, but he doesn't need it. He's only 3,700. So as long as a few guys are out, and realistically, you can just kind of wait and see if Caleb Martin does draw the start. But if he does, he makes a really good option. I think that game's at like 7:30, so we should know. We'll probably get the news literally as locks happening, so it's going to screw over everyone's teams. But taking a chance on him, it does make a little bit of sense. And obviously, we're going to have some information later in the day. Moving to power forward. I mean, a lot going on here. I'll let you start. Who are you looking at for power forward?
Giannis is sitting up there at the top. I'm probably not going there, but I would not talk you off of him. It's a great play again, and if uh, that game stays close and it's competitive, then he's in a really great spot. Charlotte's not good at guarding bigs at all, so I mean it's a really good spot for him. Uh, Other than that, I mean I don't know how you're going to feel about this, but I kind of, even with Joker back, I kind of like the Aaron Gordon revenge game narrative here and playing Orlando. 6,700. I personally think he's gonna come in and tear stuff up. I don't think it's a bad play at all. On the other side of that, I still like Wendell Carter Jr. again. His price has gone up a little bit, 6,300, but the way he's been playing, he should be able to hit that value, if not go above it again. Again, that's assuming this game stays close, which I think it should. I mean, they've surprisingly been playing teams pretty well recently. You could also probably take a shot. I mean, you could use Markkanen here too. Depending on the Vanderbilt news for the Timberwolves, I kind of like Taurean Prince as like a dart throw. That might be a bold call. I'm not sure. But that's kind of where I'm sitting at right there.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. The Aaron Gordon thing is someone that I was going to say, just because if you watch the Magic game, they're so bad against power forwards. It's crazy. Aaron Gordon obviously plays a lot of his minutes at power forward. I think Joker's still going to be the focal point and everything, but Gordon's flashed, especially even with like Joker in the lineup and everything. So I do think that Aaron Gordon call is really good. The Wendell Carter call on the opposite side, also great. I think more or less the only players that I really would be looking to add here is PJ Washington at 5,100. A lot of people were concerned about him in his last game because he didn't draw the start, but there's not all that much that Charlotte can do. He kind of has to play big minutes with Mason Plumlee out. They don't have other bigs. This isn't a situation where they have a choice in the matter, really. PJ Washington's going to have to play probably 25 plus minutes. That should be locked in. Realistically, he should play 30 plus against Milwaukee. So I do think that Washington is way too cheap at 5,100. And I guess that's honestly probably it. There's not too many more guys that I'm really looking at. If you want to take your shot on someone like Evan Mobley, I don't have any issues with that. At 3,500, he's completely in play. It's just that he's playing the Heat, and if they're healthy, that's not a good matchup. If they are going to be without a few players, I do think that it'll bump him up a little bit, specifically Bam Adebayo, who realistically is arguably the best paint defender in the NFL or NBA. I keep saying NFL here. This is actually getting kind of crazy. But I think that about does it for power forward. One more thing that I did want to quickly say that I don't think either one of us touched on earlier is that, I outlined it in the injury news, but Porzingis is questionable tonight. And if he happens to be out, Luka Doncic is going to make an elite play just because he's going to be the clear-cut focal point of everything in that offense. So I do think if Porzingis is out, Doncic is going to honestly step up and be one of the best plays on the entire slate. But not here to project injuries and kind of predict what happens there. So we're going to have to wait throughout the day to see that. And we can move on to our final position, which is center. Spike, go ahead.
So again here, Nikolai Jokic is a great play. We kind of already outlined him a little with Aaron Gordon, but there's almost no one that's really going to stop him. He's pretty 11,800 is, it's getting up there, but again, he can put up 70 fantasy points on any given night. So I'm completely fine going there. As you move down a little, going back to the well again, I used him 2 nights ago. Christian Wood, he had an absolute ceiling game there, and there's not a lot that Oklahoma City is going to be able to do to stop him. I think Favors is also questionable again, or he might have already been ruled out. But with him out too, there's just no one. And he's just I think he's going to have that same exact game again. Right around that same price range is 300 more is Jonas Valanciunas. If that game does stay close, it's going to be because of him. He had a wild ceiling game 2 nights ago, and just no one was on him at all. So if he can stay out of foul trouble, which he should, because Dallas doesn't have any bigs at all that are going to scare him off, especially you throw someone like Porzingis out of the game, he's going to have a field day there. So I really like him. If you want to go a little cheaper than that, Ivica Zubac is someone who is also on my radar. As you can tell, I kind of like the Clippers tonight. Sacramento can't guard anyone. Holmes is there. He should give him a little bit of trouble, but at 5,100, I like Zubac's odds to break that tag. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm sitting at right there.
Yeah, I think you outlined it really well. My only concern with Zubac is that Serge Ibaka, I believe, played 20, I want to say 26. It might have been like 25 minutes in their last game. And I just feel like it's a better matchup for Ibaka just because of the way that Holmes plays. He's not going to, be down in the paint, being a big body against Zubac. So if they choose to match the lack of size with size, I think that Zubac is going to go absolutely crazy. I just don't generally trust NBA coaches when they have that option. They like to just match up one-on-one, even if they know they're going to lose that battle. But I think you outlined center extremely well. Nikola Jokic is a top option, the option at center for me, and I don't even think anyone's that close. Similar to you, I used him the other night. Christian Wood. If you don't know what Houston's opting to do, they're going essentially with a small ball lineup with Christian Wood as the only big. They essentially took out Daniel Tice. Since then, I believe it's been more or less the three big games where he scored 60.25, 63.5, and 43. I mean, he's absolutely dominating. Oklahoma City has no one that's even going to slow him down. If Tice was on the court and taking away from him, it wouldn't matter, let alone Christian Wood getting literally all of the opportunities for Houston. I see another big double-double. We could see another 2020 game. He obviously has block upside. He scored 60 fantasy points and he didn't record a single assist. I think his lowest total in like almost 5 games before that was 3. So there's even more upside to be had in that situation. He also shot only slightly over 50% from the field, which obviously is good, but it's not like we haven't seen him shoot closer to 70% at times, honestly. So I do think that Christian Wood's really good. I have no problems with guys like Towns, Valanciunas, even Sabonis. I think if Miles Turner is out, we're going to bump Sabonis up quite a bit as he moves kind of over into that facilitating center type deal. Outside of that, if Bam Adebayo's out, Jarrett Allen at 8,100, 100% fine with him. He's another guy that's really enjoying a breakout season as the Cavs go with that massive lineup with Lauri Markkanen at the 3. But that's more or less what I'm looking at for center. I guess if you want to take your shot on someone like Rashawn Holmes, or if you do trust that the Clippers are going to opt for Serge Ibaka, he's cheap enough to be used. But I don't know. I feel like at center, there's just so many great high-priced options that I'm going to look to save salary elsewhere and play most likely Christian Wood and probably one other center in my utility. Do you have anyone else that you want to go over? Or do you think we hit everyone? Because I feel like that's a pretty good pool that we've got.
No, I feel like we hit a good amount. I'll throw one more name in there just because I'm a big fan of him. Clint Capella, if Miles Turner is out, is going to have an absolute field day. You want to talk about a 2020 game? That's very highly possible, even with Turner in. So just keep that in the back of your mind and watch out for that news.
I like that call. That's really good. That is all we have for you for this edition of the podcast. Once again, you can find all of our content at dfskarma.com. All the links you need are in the description below. Just click the show more. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. You can turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our videos by clicking the little bell. And then comment any questions or comments that you have below, and Spike and myself will try to answer them throughout the day to the best that we can. Good luck tonight, and we will be back tomorrow with another video.
Peace.